Hello, everyone. I'm David Berkowitz. Welcome back to another edition of AI Insiders by AI Marketers Guild, which I'm getting better at remembering to say since I've got a lot of folks viewing this on demand. And I am very excited to be here live at the moment with a great crew from AI Marketers Guild, but also our featured speaker today. We've got Max Cammarota from BB Clark and Myler and BCM. I got to call out, has just been one of the most active agencies involved with AI Marketers Guild, one of the biggest supporters and advocates for AI Marketers Guild. They've got a lot of folks from different parts of the organization who've been participating and learning and often behind the scenes. And I've been saying to them for a while, like you guys are so damn smart. Like even like the first time I sat down with him, what was it, 2 years ago? And actually, my old colleague, the John Regals, who some of you know from his story at a industry career, John. John introduced us, and it's just like I've learned so much from them. And Max actually was recently on a panel I was on in April, and so I'm like, please, just anything you're doing, anything like this group will love to hear it. So Max took the bait. I'll let you tee up more what you're going to share today, and I can make you co-host so you could share anything you like. But I'm just excited to get to learn even more from you today and make sure even more people in the community are able to enjoy that same privilege. So welcome, Max.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And we definitely appreciate the partnership and all the work we've done together, over the last several months or years, I suppose. So I appreciate that call out. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, Ventas AI, here we go.
All right. So I'm going to talk about Ventas AI today. It's a creative workflow powered by AI. I think a lot of us in the AI Marketers Guild are in similar positions. So hopefully, this is something that maybe you guys can resonate to or with. But I'll just kind of kick it off. David, you gave us a great intro in terms of the agency. But we are a performance media agency. We've been doing a full funnel growth for performance-oriented clients for 20 years. This is actually our 20th year. We were founded in 2005. But as you mentioned, we've tried to always stay ahead of the pack in terms of tech, and specifically AI. So we've developed, these different products, services, using these types of tech stacks. And I'll go into a little bit how that connects to Ventas today. Myself, I am the director of performance media. I'm the product engineer of Ventas AI, as well as another one called Observe Pro. Today, I'm going to talk about Ventas AI, though. So the first thing is, what is it? It's an AI-powered workflow, and I'll go into the different kind of modules we have, but very, very simply put, it's a workflow or a process to develop creative, and we're leveraging some of the latest and greatest AI tech to power it, enhance it, make it more efficient, and that's some of the stuff I'll uncover today. What does it do? It creates high volumes of diverse ads to fuel platform algorithms. And that is important because business growth requires channel expansion, which obviously requires creative. And within each channel or these platforms, the algorithms require high volumes of creative to win or perform better. The problem has been that traditional creative production couldn't really solve for this challenge. And that's where Ventas AI was born. So I'll go a little bit into those details, but you might ask, does it work? Here's a couple stats. We've launched thousands of ads over the last 2 years. It was actually created in 2022 in terms of a minimal viable product. We have had 100% retention rate with our clients. We recently won the Newsweek AI Impact Award in the category of Marketing Best Outcomes, Consumer Targeting, and Personalization. We've seen client performance improve in terms of cost per leads dropping 66%. We've seen ROAS hikes above 150%, and overall business growth that we've been tracking by expanding channels, improving business revenue 15% year over year. Okay, so let's get into the meat a little bit. In 2022, we realized that industry challenges required a new solution for growth. The first was that paid search became extremely competitive and expensive. It was maturing, it was saturated, and we weren't able to grow client business revenue. And think about how that's accelerated, since then. Zero-click searches, AI overviews, that's all been accelerating the lack of growth that search is able to provide. Now, it's still a very highly valuable channel, of course, but if we're trying to reach new users efficiently and effectively and grow businesses, we need to expand channels. So when you go to look for these other channels where we can reach these users effectively, it gives us that opportunity, but it does require a lot of production costs that don't necessarily scale easily, especially for creative. At the same time, we're expanding channels. The algorithms of these channels are getting more and more effective, and they require and even reward more creative variation. So we're kind of stuck in this challenge in 2022 where we're thinking to ourselves, hey, we need to expand channels and we need to fuel these platforms, but we just simply don't have the creative firepower to do that. And many of our clients didn't at the time as well. And this was kind of an aha moment for me. Back in 2022, I remember sitting in our new office, or shared office space in Stamford, Connecticut. It was beautiful. It was overlooking the Long Island Sound. And I had a presentation to go to the partners of BCM with a title that read, "This is an inflection point for BCM," where I laid out these challenges, and I essentially was pitching a creative process that would eventually become Ventas AI. Let's talk a little bit about the algorithms that were becoming increasingly more effective at the time. So this is Andromeda. This is a good, complicated diagram of how these algorithms work on these platforms. So if you look from left to right, user requests are like user activity, what they're scrolling on, what they're clicking on, what they're searching, what they're viewing. That will trigger the system to retrieve relevant ads. Your ads corpus is essentially the ads that are fed into the algorithm, not only yours, but others as well. And then your hierarchical ad index is where it's going to organize those ads and understand at different levels, somewhat like a decision tree, who are we going to serve which ads to? And those are your ad candidates. So, while we're undergoing these challenges, we're seeing the rise of these AI-fueled platforms, and we're understanding how they're operating and what it takes to essentially be successful in these. And that is a high volume of diverse ads. Not only that, but when you look at what our previous strategies were kind of pre-2022 and post-2022, there was this old kind of more direct marketing style of media buying that was very prescriptive. You told the API who to target, where to target them, and with what ad. We were doing a lot of A/B testing to find the best ad. And then you go into this new environment where it's kind of unleashing the platform algorithms, and you're just creating a ton of scale and variety in your messaging, allowing the algorithm to kind of find who the right candidates are for each of these messages and ads and the imagery within them. So we went from kind of this Byzantine structure to this more fluid algorithmic structure where there's less prescriptive targeting. But if you fed the algorithms a diet of creative the right way, you'll find that there are many best ads. And it wasn't necessarily about A/B testing for the best ad. It was about multivariate testing. It was about allowing the algorithm to give ad A 60% of the spend, B 20% of the spend, and C another 20% of the spend. And in aggregate, your performance would improve. And we tested this, right? We went to market with lower volumes of creative and higher volumes of creative. And we saw not only more middle of the funnel metrics like click-through rate improve, but conversions as well. And that's when we knew we had something. We said we need to figure out a solution to get more creative variation and feed these algorithms so that we can win. The problem was that the traditional creative execution couldn't produce this type of scale without exhausting resources. It was costly. We would have to have clients use up a lot of their creative team resources who were not only specific to digital. They were working on many other things for the brand, and we just couldn't get that throughput that we needed. So that's where we designed Ventas AI. So we made this to make performance-driven creative faster, smarter, and more scalable. Speed was incredibly important, not just getting to market, but continuously updating, refreshing, and testing new things. Oftentimes we'd get these learnings and actionable insights, and we'd take it to the client and say, hey, we have the winning formula right here. And the response would be, okay, we'll need to wait, 8 to 12 weeks until we can produce this. And that was an issue, right? Because we were trying to move quickly, and we knew what we had to do. We knew what it took to win, but the creative bottleneck was always an issue. Scale was another one. As we expanded these channels, think about all of the different inventory that they have, like Meta alone. You have Reels, you have Stories, you have in-feed, Instagram versus Facebook. You have 1x1s, 9x16, 1.91 by 1. Then Pinterest has 2x3. Display has many, many different specs and variations. And that's a lot for a creative team, especially if you're trying to have a variety of messages or address a bunch of different personas or segments within the market. And the third pillar is learn. This is very important. We're not just unleashing a bunch of ads continuously and hoping that performance improves. We're actually monitoring this and feeding it back into our production loop so that we can make better ads every time we create a new batch. And AI is used throughout all of this, especially in Learn, to help, kind of find these insights and these patterns. I'm actually going to stop right here. Is everyone with me? Any questions so far?
Let's see. We've got a question coming from Mike. I don't know if we want to elaborate on this at all.
Yeah, I think Max somewhat answered it in the previous slide after I typed it in. But I am curious to understand, are you basically do you need the library of content? And then, in terms of improved messaging, improved imagery, and then the system is going to then, configure and produce variants of that? Or are they, is a client giving you some examples and then you're iterating off of that?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So it's kind of two-part. One is the platform in that specific scenario. These are how the platform algorithms operate. They're pulling from the ads. They're kind of making decisions based on the content in those ads to find the ad candidates. At the same time, Ventas AI works very similarly to this, where we're actually pulling these individual elements, as you said, think post copy, image on image text, on image images, different designs. We're pulling those in isolate, and then we're concocting them and putting them together in different variations and formats, right? So I hope that answers your question.
So, and are you also creating messaging variants? And I'm curious that if you are, how do you handle, let's say, if you're in a regulated industry like healthcare, right? It's open enrollment, and making sure is the language pre-approved, or how is that working, Max?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. And we do have a massive healthcare client, so we deal with this all the time. And it does create, human checkpoints, right, in the system, ensuring that whatever we're putting together, all of these elements, whether they're in a final production format or in isolate, are brand friendly. So we work with the brands. We're training the AI that we use on the brands to make sure that we're compliant and whatever we're putting out is compliant. And then we're feeding it back to the brands in a quick approval system where they're approving these in isolation. Yes, it does slow things down a bit, but it is necessary for things, especially in the healthcare space, so that we're not just continuously ripping ads into the system. But what I'd say is, for the most part, training the AI on these brands, it's very good. There's very few times that we have rejected copy or anything like that.
And my last question, in terms of the various media, am I understanding that the platform could basically develop posts for various social platforms, and whether that be static or video, or do you need those assets already created for you?
No, it's both. So we'll use generative AI. We'll take things out in the marketplace publicly available, or we'll take any client assets, footage, images, etc., and manipulate it to fit into our creative.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. And actually, this will be kind of covered in this upcoming section. But great questions.
And we do have a few more questions come in. This is wondering, is there a way for humans to approve all the variations before they go out?
There is, but to move quickly the way that we want and at this scale, it is best and preferred to approve things in isolation. There are definitely cases where we have to have final approvals, but we're talking hundreds of ads, right? And that can seriously slow down the process. And you don't want to create bottlenecks when we're trying to solve for them. But in most cases, these isolated elements being approved beforehand will often lead to final approvals anyways. And we do have, active ads and final ad, banks that we share with our clients so that they have a very transparent view into what's going live. But, we try and expedite the process as much as possible.
Great. And then Gene's wondering about brand voice and how brand like Liquid Death might get some overly safe copy and creative that doesn't fit with its image, or how do you make sure that ethos of the brand carries through all its iterations? Or she's asking about the homogenization of creative output, right? How does it not all feel the same at the end of it?
Yeah. Well, that's what we're training our system to do is really very create variety. So obviously we're training some of the AI tools, specifically LLMs or any of the predictive or generative AI that we use. We're making sure that the brand is the most important thing that's considered among this. And like I said, it's not magic, right? It's a human driven but AI powered workflow. So there are human checkpoints in this workflow to make sure that we're not just spitting out ads that don't feel like the brand or aren't conveying the messages that we want. And so those approvals and those checkpoints by both us and the client help to do so. And then finally, based on what we're looking for to, capture the brand, if it's not generative AI in the form of like images and things like that, and we're not hitting the mark there, then we do seek alternatives, right? We seek any product photos potentially. We seek anything from the client that was shot. We can even, incorporate stock based on what we need or the what the client has available. So there's a lot of flexibility within it. But our goal is always to be on brand, create variety, and ensure that both us and the clients are comfortable with what's going out. We're not just, like I said, shooting ads out into these platforms. It's a very, very strategic. And hopefully these next slides will kind of explain that further.
And do your next slides explain whether and where AI fits in with that first part on consumer research and persona building?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, nice. Well, why don't we let you continue a bit, and then we'll see what other questions come up and continue the conversation.
So this is the workflow, essentially. It's these 5 modules, and it's a continuous system to improve and scale what we do. We have consumer research and persona building. We're using tools in our tech stack to get this research and build these personas with LLMs and things like that. Within the consumer research, we use a few tools that are using predictive modeling, which I'll actually get to on the next slide. But it's taking, a seed audience, right, and a seed kind of understanding of it could be first party data, it could be visitors to your website, it could be based on survey results, and they're using kind of probabilistic modeling to determine who or what traits these users have. So one of our tools in particular spits out about 15,000 insights based on values, motivators, belief, media consumption habits, different media behaviors and purchase preferences. And that allows us to make a comprehensive profile of who is in our target market. And we're able to create these personas and segment them out so that we are addressing the multiple segments and we are able to align these segments to the varied messages that we're putting out. The next module of that is once we have these personas, once we understand who we're trying to resonate and connect with, we use generative AI to help scale things like copy, image, and message generation, within the ads. So that's kind of answering the previous question, which is, how do you capture the ethos of the brands, right? We're training it on these personas that has brand guidance, but it also has a lot of the consumer research that we're porting in from other tools in our tech stack, which I'll talk about shortly. Once we have these different copy, image, message generations, we go through somewhat of that pre-approval process. We have what we call pre-launch optimization of visual and text elements. So we take whatever's generated for copy, whatever's generated for images, and we run them through these predictive AI tools in our tech stack to predict performance. They give you a score based on historical ad data or even industry ad data and what those tools have in their inventory to say, hey, this ad is a winning ad or this ad is a losing ad and maybe you need to do X, Y, and Z to improve it. So we go through this creation process and essentially simulate these ads before going to market and the copy. And we knock off, hey, what isn't scoring high? What isn't working? What is working? Can we create more of that and vary that slightly so that before we start testing, before we're going to market, we know that we're at a head start in it and have an advantage. And we've tested and validated these pre-launch optimization tools countless times, and it has an 89% accuracy rate. Finally, we get to go into market, which is the best part, right? We have all of these different ads for these different segments of the market and different messages and ad formats live. It's a lot to keep track of, but we're unleashing AI generated insights on top of that so that it's surfacing what's working. And the AI will scan our ads, it'll scan our copy, it'll tag things within the images, it'll tag our copy as different styles of writing, like authority or persuasion tactics. It'll tag character counts, anything that can be bucketed. And all of these patterns kind of flow through the AI generated insights, and it's surfacing that in real time, basically saying, here's what's working, here's not what's working. And we report on that and we feed it right back into our Ventas AI loop and ensure that we're capitalizing on things that we want to double down on. And we're potentially removing or pivoting things that aren't yielding good performance. Let me break some of this stuff down as well. There's three main buckets of AI technology that I mentioned throughout. Generative AI, copy, images, video creative, all designed using generative AI. Some image and video, as I mentioned, are not. That's where we are flexible. Not everyone's ready to make that jump yet. Predictive AI, so we're using that in our pre-launch optimization, where we're forecasting ad performance using historical and industry data. It's also in the consumer data intelligence or the consumer research and persona building, where it's generating audience insights via the probabilistic and contextual models that these tools have. And then finally, computer vision. So object detection, text, and focal points that's surfacing these scores and creative insights based on performance signals, and we're feeding that back into the loop once it's all said and done. Here's arguably the most important piece that I think would resonate with most people on this call, and I think is very applicable to everyone. We're a small agency, and you see these large holding companies investing in consolidating and investing in their own tech. Dominic Venuto, who was on the panel, David, the chief product officer at Horizon, they're building Blue, right, in their systems. A lot of us on this call probably don't have the technical expertise or the funding to build something like that. And there's a lot of things in the market that are available today and continuously changing and getting better that a lot of us can tap into. So when I talk about Ventas AI, the workflow and the tech stack is proprietary, but we're not, building the predictive AI and the generative AI solutions. We're sourcing that from the market. So our role in this as an agency is going out and researching the top tools in the market, identifying the best ones, especially for this workflow in particular, and essentially renting the capabilities and bundling that into our workflow for our clients. So we curated this tech stack. The tech stack curation is proprietary, so I can't show you which companies are in the tech stack, but the beauty of it really is that it's ever changing. And as AI evolves, so does the stack. We have a certain stack right now that we use for predictive AI, for generative AI, right? Think, it could be ChatGPT or Midjourney, right? And there's a lot of other smaller ones. But as the tech improves and as new things come to market and as it gets better, and I think someone put in the chat, Gen Z can tell the difference between a normal person and a generative AI avatar. Like, as that gets better continuously and these things hit the market, we're able to adapt to that and bring that into our tech stack, make it better, and really utilize it. So I think that's one of the best parts of this, is that it's always changing, just like marketing and AI specifically, and it's growing with the market. If we were to build all this stuff proprietary, what we build today probably will not be effective tomorrow. And there's going to be better things on the market for people to buy into. So that's kind of our philosophy, and that plays into Ventas very, very well. I'll stop here before.
Well, I'm curious for the reveal, and I'm curious. What's fun is there's been some more healthy debate in the chat too, as far as how much AI can do and how much it can, and a few I'll want to see what open questions Gene is most hungry to ask. But yeah, let's see some of the stack, and then we'll
yeah. Well, I actually can't unveil the stack today.
Okay.
But I can unveil some of the features and some of the examples, because I think that is in question too. A lot of people hear AI creative and it's like, all the questions I've been asked. Is this on brand? Is it good? Does it look AI? And so hopefully that will bring some of those to rest, maybe.
Gotcha.
But I think this is an important conversation too, especially when talking about the stack, because I think everyone on this call can curate their own stack. And what's really important is how it's connected. So good would be a manual workflow. That's how Ventas started it in terms of like a minimal viable product. We had to make sure that this was working, and this is something that clients want, and this is something that actually performs well on the platforms. And in fact, it did. The better is API level integration. So we talked about our tech stack. How do you get the most out of your tech stack without having 25 different logins into Claude, ChatGPT, Midjourney, and then all the other ones in the tech stack that you have to go in and out of and copy and paste into the workflow? And that's through API keys. So you can connect these tools. Most companies have these, and you can automate specific tasks. You can create one interface to log into and use these tools to improve the workflow. And then the best, of course, which would be the future of Ventas, would be autonomous agents. Doing that and coordinating across these tools, making decisions on its own based on how we would train it and the inputs we provide, and continuously improve performance. I think this is a very important piece. So here's some examples within the workflow. I blocked out some of these clients, but this is an example of pre-launch optimization. So in this example in particular, the client initiated the design process for a specific report download. They gave us design 1 on the left, which scored about a 74. After we put it into our predictive AI tool, we were able to update the score to 80 based on the recommendations that it gave us. So larger headline, subhead, better readability. We wanted a larger logo and a different placement to impact, and then a bolder call to action. So you can kind of see download is a little bit buried here, right? And it doesn't stand out. And here we bring it to life with more on-brand, vibrant color. And stuff like that. So we made this change. It updated to an 80, and we saw about a 27% increase in click-through rate. And then later, saw improvements in our cost per download for this particular one. And this is just design, right? So we're scoring copy in addition to this. We made about 10 different pieces of copy based on the contents of this particular report and tying that to the personas in terms of what they would find most interesting to later get them to download. Here's some of the AI insight generation. So once we are live, I mentioned computer vision analytics. So the AI is kind of scanning this, right? It's looking at the image description. It's generating image entities. So it's tagging. There's bicycle helmets. There's bicycle, those, skin tight jerseys that they're wearing, cycling shorts, sporting equipment, the environment that they're in, a group of people, right? And this was a particular insight that we pulled because it was very impactful. So it said, hey, group of people in your image has a 9.2% predicted impact on conversions. Now, we had ads without people. We had ads with solo travelers and one person or a couple. For this particular client, this was very interesting because at the time we were trying to figure out, of the people taking these bicycling tours, what was the makeup? Were they solo travelers? Were they just going with their significant others? Or did they want to travel with groups, right? And the experience would be larger group, maybe it's a couple of friends and stuff like that. So we're getting these insights, and this is something that popped. And when we get an insight, we then funnel that right back into the system, and we say, hey, let's make more variations of ads with groups of people. And then we started to see performance improve. This is actually the client that we dropped cost per lead by 66%. So we fed the algorithm with more groups of people doing different things, right? This is a selfie. Maybe they were biking together. Maybe they were stopping for a break. Maybe they were eating together, because on these bicycling vacations, there's also a cultural component, and you sit and you explore these different towns. So we were creating all these different variations based on these insights that also later fueled some of their landing page development and what they were showing at the top of the page versus at the bottom, right? We wanted to bring groups. So this is just one very basic example of how the computer vision analytics helps us generate some of these insights that we've been looking for.
Well, quick question for you here. If you look at creative like this or the previous example, so how much is it that like this is very specific because this is a campaign of people who go on a group tour? How much of it is something like, okay, maybe this is something now you're trained to look for next time for other clients, and how do you know if and when, and is it ever the case that like to me, for instance, on the previous example with the download button, right? Like if I saw the before and after of that, I'd be like even if I didn't figure it out on my own, it took AI to help me figure that out. I mean, I couldn't even see the download button on the first example. And I'm sure I've done creative like that, right? Like that's, not faulting anyone for it, but
yeah.
But when I see that, I'm like, presumably that's going to be true for every campaign, right? Like, so when is it a universal rule? When is it an individual rule? And
that's a great question. And honestly, these tools have taught us a lot. So like, not even using the tool to run the predictive, like we're getting, before we start scoring, we're getting better scores because we know a lot of these things hold true. Large headlines and sub headlines for readability, a very vibrant, focal call to action is important. Certain sizes of the images. So like this report to the, in the right of the ad would be tagged as an image. So, the rule of thumb for a lot of the scoring is like 40 to 75% of the ad is image. So things like that, where we started picking up on a lot of this, and our first takes on some of these got better and better. Or what we'd provide to clients would be, hey, here's how you score high. Then once we score high, we still run it through the system, and there's little things that you wouldn't even think of that pop up, and we try and implement. So it's taught us a lot. And copy as well is a good one. Like different writing styles and hooks in the way that you write the copy.
So
it's very interesting.
So does this mean there's a future where you don't even need the AI? AI trained you so well, and you're like, we're good.
Definitely possible. We're getting smarter and smarter, that's for sure. And there's always things like, specifically in the AI insight generation, you're not looking for some of this stuff, and it gets surfaced to you, and then it's an aha moment. You're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Group travel makes a lot of sense for this because X, Y, and Z. Now, we had solo travelers, we had smaller groups, and then we had larger groups based on the personas, and these things just pop and surface.
And Amy's asking another variation of this question that I think is really cool, because like, as far as like even figuring out what elements to test, and she's saying how they knew at Purina that white cats work better than black cats. Sorry for the maligned black cat owners, but like how does it even know when to test a cat color, right? Or a different facial expression on the cat, or something that like what elements even just pop up as something for consideration, especially when you're like, there's a cat, it's cat food.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's honestly, it's crazy. Because you don't, you can set a strategy with certain things that you want to learn from this execution. And you might go for more higher impact, changes, right? Versus an expression, which might be a lower impact. But then once you go to market, and the key is variation and diversity, all of the patterns that it's picking up, the more ads that you have and the more variation that you have, the smarter these things are, and the more that you'll get out of it, because it's detecting all of these different patterns, and it's finding things that you're not even thinking about. And then you say, hey, that's interesting. I'm going to take that. We're going to put it into the next batch, and let's test it and see, how is it a frowny face? Is it a smiley face? Is it a white cat, a black cat? And then you kind of go down these avenues, and you're doing it so quickly and able to turn things around quickly that the minor impact changes and recommendations are important, and they're being implemented. We're not just like going out seeking these huge needle movers, which are definitely important, and we're doing, but we're able to test more granularly and learn more granularly with what this is unlocking.
And there's so many great comments coming in. I do want to call one from Dave, who's bringing up like, it matters how performance is defined, and here we're talking about display ads that shouldn't be just the same way search ads are. I'm curious to what extent you agree with that and how that factors in.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely, there's variations and across the platforms that also need to be considered, right? How is the copy written on Meta versus Pinterest versus LinkedIn? What are the tones that you want to take on those, right? It adds just one example, and that is broken down through a lot of the AI insight generation, and specifically the generative AI features. When we're training Ventas AI, and we say, hey, we need ads for Meta, it's trained on these Meta ad best practices and the character counts that you need, and what the ad should look and feel like, versus display, which you have less area within the ad to create copy, right? Or like an on-image message per se. In display, we've learned that light motion does very well in terms of click-through rates, because think about, you're scrolling on a screen, and you're trying to consume content, if there's something stagnant in the right hand corner, you might miss that. But if it moves, it kind of catches your eye and points in that direction. So that's where the variation comes from, is thinking about platform first. What should I be developing, and how can I cater that to the platform, and specifically the segments within the platform? But yeah, I mean, image wise and imagery wise, it can definitely differ. We've been able to use certain styles and images on platforms that transition very seamlessly to others, which again helps scale. But there are absolutely cases where it's like, hey, our Pinterest content should look different than our LinkedIn content. What do we want to create for this versus that?
Very helpful. Are there a few points because we got less than 10 minutes to go, are there a few points you want to get in, and there's so much conversation we can draw from too? So
just I'll show some of the examples just so it's like clear the different industries that we're in, and what we're doing. These in particular are all just one by ones in terms of like the modular designs. And when I say modular designs, I'm talking like, there's a headline in the top of, I don't know if you can see my mouse. Can you?
Yeah, I see it there. Yeah.
Okay. Like for this ad, there's a headline at the top. That is a dynamic headline. So we're going to create different variations and, put different headlines with similar character counts in this ad. The image is modular as well, right? This one in particular is for horse and large animal medicine in New York, right? We might have a girl with a sloth or a tiger, or a boy with a sloth, a boy with a tiger, and we're testing these different things, right? For this one in particular, we had like 23 different programs. This was the horse and large animal medicine. So the need for scale was very apparent. We needed multiple headlines. We needed multiple images that aligned to the programs. And we needed this kind of yellow tag on it to highlight those specific programs. And that's where a lot of the scale comes in. And then, of course, we can use a lot of our tools to bring motion into this, or light motion, or, if we wanted to start with, more of a video, we can certainly do that. That's one example. Another is to the top right, explore Peru's Machu Picchu in 2025. There's 20 different locations that this particular client offers and you want to explore, right? So ensuring that we have a system to scale that and address the different locations and support those. Here's another example of like generative AI. So these are different formats. There's some video in terms of light motion, right? Based on a lot of these formats. Here's where you kind of see display and they take different shape. This one, we didn't necessarily like curate it differently. But all of these images that you see here are generative AI. So none of these people are real. And we wanted to create them in different environments to test. So kind of in a boardroom, right here in an office alone, speaking in front of people or at a speaking event, like a keynote speaker. So we were able to vary a little bit in that direction. Okay, I'll stop here and we can kind of just answer any questions. But
who wants to chime in at the 5-minute mark? We got.
I'll jump back in. What about search ads?
Yeah, we're trying to get that into our system more. The original focus was mostly paid social and programmatic. But we are trying to focus more on some of the copy generation specific to search. A lot of the tools in our tech stack do support that. I kind of came out of social and programmatic, and that was the major need at the time. But that's something that we're trying to evolve Ventas to support as well.
And are you getting involved in the media strategy as well as the platform, looking at kind of an end-to-end in that respect?
Yeah, absolutely. We are putting a lot more emphasis and stock in the consumer research and persona building.
Mm-hmm.
which will drive the strategy and how we build specific campaigns, our channel selections. We're already doing that. It's technically outside of Ventas, but these are all things that we're kind of building around Ventas and integrating more and more seamlessly, especially with these API keys.
I'm curious if you still have any human intervention in the ad creation itself, if you see something that needs quote unquote improvement visually or otherwise.
Absolutely. Definitely human intervention, but what we found and what Ventas AI kind of prides itself on is that these machines know a lot, and they know how to talk to each other. And sometimes human intervention, or what we sometimes call "I know better" syndrome, can deviate from that strategy. And we ensure that every time, very, very often, we're validating that the AI is working and that these recommendations and pre-launch optimization tactics are improving results. So we do interfere and intervene and do make changes, but we do rely and trust that what we're seeing from the data and what the machines are seeing from the data is going to lead to better performance. And I'll be clear too, this is very much a performance marketing machine. This isn't a branding, brand awareness style buy type of product. It's very performance marketing focus. So getting people to take an action, get target market to take action by, XYZ.
Yeah, just rhetorically just thinking like where that leads down the road for brand erosion and the ultimate value of performance.
You usually have two different strains of thought when you're talking about any kind of branding / marketing that you're doing on your ads. You're either upper funnel, where you're focused on brand awareness, brand retention, and all the other metrics related to your brand overall. But then you're also on the lower end, we'll call it lower funnel, or what Max said, let's say conversion based, right? Performance based. You're looking at specific call to actions and specific actions that you want for your target audience, for your target campaign. You cannot combine them both.
Correct.
So if you're looking at creative, when you're judging creative, are you talking from an upper funnel branding perspective, or are you talking about driving a call to action and the results that you want for your campaign? You cannot mix them in the same bucket. This is the misunderstanding I think people find. But Max, thank you for clarifying in terms of you guys are focused on performance, and I'm assuming the lower funnel. Is that correct?
That is correct with this product. Now, our agency does support and provide other branding opportunities for more, brand awareness objectives and things like that. But Ventas AI was designed for performance marketing specifically because of the vast amount of data that you get on these actions. So
I'm sorry, I got to jump in and disagree really quickly because everything you do affects your branding.
Yes.
I
agree 100% with Chris.
At the same time, Earl, and I agree with you on that perspective that this is for performance, but your performance marketing affects your branding, and it is a risk, and it must be a calculated risk.
Yeah,
I agree 100% with Chris.
Sure.
Your performance. I'm sorry.
Measure it.
You
I
interrupted
don't disagree with that, but how would you measure that?
You interrupted me.
Apologies.
Branding is going to drive performance. You can't, if you don't spend money on branding, you're basically optimizing to a very small infinitesimal point. You gotta have branding.
Yeah, we would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think the work stuff, if anybody's seen that probably aligns with our philosophy. This is Stuart Myler, by the way. I think we would agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Well, you think you could use something like this for branding? I think it's not. I think the difference here is we're operating an auction-based media where performance drives exposure and viewability, right? So can't force your way in. And so you have to lean into the algorithms if you want to get exposure, especially preferentially priced exposure for the right people. And so that's kind of in environments where that's the case, like it's auction based and it's algorithmic driven, then you kind of need something like this, right? In most of those platforms, there are branding elements there, but I hear you. There's places and a lot of branding takes place where it's forced exposure, right? I don't have to compete. I have your attention and paying for it. But yeah, we don't disagree with the statement of the importance of branding.
Of course.
Well, you all sparked a lot of great conversation. I think some of the best we've had, maybe the best we've had in chat as far as like how vibrant this is. So, I want to go back and process this, and Max, I'll make sure you see it too. And yeah, because I'm sure there's plenty, a lot of feedback you'll appreciate, and maybe some folks who want to follow up with, want them folks, of course, follow up with you and continue with that, and maybe even, have a little bit more discussion and debate. We've got a few more guest speakers coming up. Like we could, July 2nd, I know before the holiday will be more open-ended without a guest speaker. So, play around with the theme then, but also open to any ideas from the community for themes that you want to make sure we pick up on. And, so Max, thank you for all the education and inspiration, and even some things that, like, it just questions that I think people need to ask themselves and see what matters for their own work and their own clients and campaigns. And but this is exactly what we're here for, right? Spark new ways of thinking, and you've definitely done that, and it's just amazing seeing the results based on what's worked for BCM. So thank you, and Stuart, and your team for just being a big part of all this.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, we'll see you in the community and keep these going, and hope to see you all next week. We got a really fun showcase next week with textbook ventures and lots more to come. So see you all very soon.
Hey, Dave, how soon is this video available? This is awesome.
By the end of the week. So I'll make sure.
All right. Thanks. This was really great. And I agree. Very good dynamic conversation. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is a fun one.